you know this feeling. You've had a long day, you're tired, genuinely tired, your body is heavy, your eyes feel ready to close. You brush your teeth, you turn off the lights, you settle into bed with that familiar sense of relief. And then it happens. Your brain wakes up. Suddenly, you're thinking about the email you forgot to send, the conversation from 3 days ago that maybe, just maybe, you handled wrong. That project deadline that's still weeks away but somehow feels urgent right now, in the dark, at 11:47 p.m. You've lived this moment thousands of times. What happens to you happens to millions of us every single night. Tonight, we're going to understand why. Your brain is like a security guard who's been on duty for a very, very long time. This guard has one job: to keep you safe, to watch for threats, to make sure nothing bad happens to you. This security guard, your inner watchman, has been doing this job since you were born. In fact, his family has been doing this job for hundreds of thousands of years. His great-great-great-grandfather kept your ancestors alive when saber-toothed cats prowled outside their caves. His grandfather kept your great-grandparents alert during times of war and famine. And now this same watchman is trying to keep you safe from emails, deadlines, social interactions, things that, objectively, cannot actually harm you in the dark of your bedroom. But here's the thing about this inner watchman: he can't tell the difference. To him, the anxiety you feel about tomorrow's meeting and the fear your ancestor felt hearing a predator outside their cave, they're the same thing. They trigger the same alarm system, the same stress chemicals, the same need to stay awake and figure everything out right now. This isn't your fault. You haven't failed at sleep. You haven't failed at being human. What's happening to you is the result of an ancient system that saved your ancestors' lives, now trying to save you from dangers that exist mostly in your mind. And the difficult part is that in trying to protect you, this system often becomes the very thing that hurts you. Tonight, we're going to understand this system. We're going to meet the parts of your brain that are involved in this nightly struggle. And perhaps most importantly, we're going to learn why approaching this with compassion for your brain, for your body, for yourself is the first step toward healing. Because what I want you to know right from the beginning is this: your brain is not sabotaging you. It's trying to save you. It's just confused about what you need saving from. You've lived this pattern. You're exhausted during the day, but the moment your head hits the pillow, your mind starts racing. You lie in bed creating mental to-do lists, replaying conversations, planning tomorrow's tasks down to the last detail. You check your phone just once and find yourself scrolling for an hour. You get up to use the bathroom and somehow end up reorganizing your medicine cabinet at midnight. You become a different person after 10 p.m. During the day, you're rational, organized, capable. At night, you're anxious, scattered, almost manic. You're not unusual. Research shows that about 40% of adults experience some form of pre-sleep anxiety. You're part of millions who experience this nightly ritual of exhaustion paired with mental hyperactivity. But why does this happen to you? Why does the transition to sleep, something so natural, so necessary, become a battlefield? To understand this, we need to talk about something researchers call hypervigilance. Hypervigilance is what happens when your brain's alarm system gets stuck in the on position. Your brain has a security alarm, like the one in your house. Normally, this alarm is quiet during the day. It's there, it's working, but it's not going off constantly. It only sounds when there's a real threat. But your brain's alarm has become hypersensitive. It's going off for every little thing. The neighbor's dog barking, a car door slamming, your partner breathing a little loudly. Except instead of actual sounds, it's going off for thoughts, worries, mental scenarios. This hypervigilance didn't appear out of nowhere in your life. It developed as a response to stress, trauma, or simply the accumulated pressures of modern life. Your brain learned that the world can be unpredictable, that bad things can happen, that you need to be ready. And where does your brain decide to do all this getting ready? During the transition to sleep, when your conscious mind is finally quiet enough for your deeper concerns to surface. There's a specific part of your brain that plays a starring role in this nightly drama. It's called the amygdala, and I like to think of it as your brain's smoke detector. Just like a smoke detector, your amygdala is always scanning for danger. It processes information incredibly quickly, much faster than your rational thinking mind. When it detects what it thinks is a threat, it triggers what we call the fight or flight response. In a genuinely dangerous situation, this is exactly what you want. If a car is coming toward you, you don't want to spend time rationally analyzing the situation. You want your amygdala to signal danger and release stress hormones so you can jump out of the way. But here's where it gets complicated for you. Recent research has shown that in people who struggle with bedtime anxiety, the amygdala doesn't just stay active, it actually becomes more active as you try to fall asleep. Studies have found that people with chronic insomnia show significant changes in their amygdala structure. The parts responsible for detecting threats are enlarged, while the parts responsible for calming down are smaller. It's as if years of bedtime worry have gradually reshaped your brain to be more vigilant, more alert, more ready to find danger. But remember, your amygdala can't tell the difference between a real tiger and an imaginary worry. To your amygdala, the anxiety you feel about tomorrow's presentation and the fear you'd feel facing an actual predator, they're the same thing. So when you lie down to sleep and your amygdala starts scanning your mind the way it might scan a dark forest, it finds plenty of things that feel like threats, unfinished projects, potential conflicts, future scenarios where things might go wrong. And its response is always the same. We need to stay awake and deal with this now. This is why your bedtime anxiety often feels so urgent, so immediate. Even when the things you're worried about are days or weeks away, your amygdala doesn't understand tomorrow or next week. It only understands now and not now. And if it thinks there's a threat, then now is when it needs to be addressed. You've experienced this exact sensation. Your mind becomes like a browser with 47 tabs open, and each tab is playing a different video, and you can't figure out how to close any of them. That image perfectly captures what neuroscientists have discovered about what's actually happening in your brain when sleep becomes elusive. You see, there are several networks in your brain that need to work together for you to fall asleep peacefully. Think of them as different departments in a large company, and sleep happens when they're all coordinating properly. First, there's what researchers call the default mode network. This is fascinating. It's the network that's active when you're not actively focused on anything specific. When you're daydreaming, letting your mind wander, or just existing without a particular agenda. In healthy sleep, this network gradually quiets down. It's like the office slowly getting ready to close for the night. The lights dim, the activity decreases, everyone starts wrapping up their work. But in your bedtime anxiety, something different happens. Instead of quieting down, your default mode network stays active. Worse, it becomes hyperactive. It starts churning out thoughts, memories, plans, worries. All the mental activity that should be winding down instead ramps up. Your brain scans would show your default mode network staying active and bright when it should be gently dimming. This is where things get really interesting, because there's another network involved, something called the executive control network. This is your brain's CEO, if you will. It's the part responsible for making decisions, controlling attention, and managing your responses to different situations. In healthy sleep, the executive control network gradually hands over control to sleep systems. It's like the CEO saying, All right, team, I'm heading home. You all know what to do. See you in the morning. But when you're experiencing bedtime anxiety, your executive control network can't quite let go. It keeps trying to solve problems, make decisions, and control outcomes. It's like a CEO who says they're leaving for the night but then keeps calling the office every 5 minutes with just one more thing. This creates a kind of neurological tug-of-war in your brain. Part of your brain is trying to sleep, while another part is trying to stay awake and solve all your problems. And caught in the middle is you, lying in bed, feeling exhausted but unable to rest. There's something else happening too, something that you might not realize. When you're lying in bed with racing thoughts, your brain is actually processing the day's emotional experiences. This is normally a good thing. It's how your brain makes sense of what happened, consolidates important memories, and prepares for tomorrow. But when this processing happens in your state of anxiety, it gets distorted. Instead of calmly reviewing the day, your brain starts catastrophizing, ruminating, and creating elaborate worry scenarios. During the day, you might have had a brief interaction with a colleague who seemed a bit short with you. In healthy sleep processing, your brain might simply file this away as colleague seemed stressed, probably not about me. But in your anxious sleep processing, this same interaction becomes, they're definitely angry with me. I must have done something wrong. This is going to affect my performance review. I might lose my job. How will I pay my mortgage? This isn't you being dramatic. It's your brain trying to prepare for every possible threat. But instead of being helpful, it becomes exhausting for you. Now, there's another character in this story that we need to talk about. It's a brain chemical called norepinephrine, which is also known as noradrenaline. Think of norepinephrine as your brain's emergency broadcast system. In healthy sleep, norepinephrine levels naturally decrease. It's like the emergency broadcast system going offline for the night, allowing for peaceful, restorative sleep. But research has shown that people with chronic bedtime anxiety often have disrupted norepinephrine patterns. Your emergency broadcast system doesn't fully go offline. It keeps sending low-level alerts throughout the night, making deep, restful sleep nearly impossible for you. This is why you often find that even when you do fall asleep, you don't feel rested. Your brain never fully powered down. It's like trying to rest while someone keeps gently checking in every few minutes saying, "Hey, are you sure everything's okay?" What's particularly difficult about this system is that it creates a cycle in your life. The more nights you spend struggling to fall asleep, the more your brain learns that bedtime is a time of danger, of struggle, of things going wrong. Your amygdala, that smoke detector we talked about, starts to associate your own bed, your own bedroom, with anxiety. The place that should feel most safe becomes a place your brain views with suspicion. This is called conditioned arousal, and it's one of the reasons why your bedtime anxiety can persist even after the original stressors in your life are resolved. Your brain has learned that bedtime equals danger, and it takes conscious effort to unlearn that association. But here's what I want you to understand. None of this is your fault. You didn't choose to have an overactive amygdala. You didn't decide to have a default mode network that won't quiet down. These are neurological patterns that developed for reasons, often very good reasons, given your life experiences. Your brain is not broken. It's not defective. It's actually working exactly as it was designed to work. It's just working overtime in response to a world that has often felt unsafe, unpredictable, or overwhelming to you. And that understanding, that compassionate understanding of what your brain is trying to do, is where your healing begins. You came to understand sleep difficulty not because you thought you had trauma. You came to this realization because you couldn't sleep. Your life might look successful on paper. You might be accomplished, with relationships, with responsibilities. But every night, without fail, the moment you try to sleep, your mind starts racing. You've thought to yourself, I should be happy, I should be able to sleep, nothing terrible is happening in my life right now. But as you look deeper, you begin to remember. Maybe when you were 8 years old, your family went through financial instability. What followed were months or years of arguments between your parents and a constant undercurrent of anxiety in your household. You remember lying in bed as a child, listening to your parents talking tensely in the kitchen. You remember trying to figure out how to help, what you could do to make things better. You remember feeling like it was your job to fix everything, to be alert to problems, to stay ready. Your bedtime anxiety isn't really about your current life. It's about that younger part of you who learned that nighttime was when the family's problems surfaced, when your hypervigilance might be needed, when letting your guard down felt dangerous. This is what I mean when I talk about taking a trauma-informed approach to your bedtime anxiety. When I say trauma, I don't necessarily mean dramatic, life-threatening events, though those certainly count. I'm talking about any experience that taught your nervous system that the world isn't consistently safe, predictable, or nurturing. Maybe you grew up in a household with addiction, where bedtime was when the drinking started and the chaos began. Maybe you had a parent who struggled with their own anxiety, and you learned to be hypervigilant about their moods and needs. Maybe you experienced bullying at school and spent your nights replaying the day's humiliations and strategizing how to avoid tomorrow's. Or maybe your childhood was relatively stable, but adult life brought its own lessons and unpredictability. You experienced a job loss, a relationship ending, a health scare, a global pandemic that turned everyone's world upside down. Here's what's important for you to understand. Your nervous system doesn't differentiate between past and present the way your rational mind does. When you're lying in bed at night and your amygdala starts scanning for threats, it's not just scanning your current circumstances, it's scanning your entire history of experiences, looking for patterns that might spell danger. This is actually a remarkable survival mechanism. If you lived through a period where nights were genuinely unsafe, whether because of family chaos, financial instability, or actual danger, then developing a hypervigilant sleep system probably saved you in some way. It kept you alert, ready to respond, prepared for whatever might happen. The challenge is that nervous systems are conservative. Once your system learned that nighttime can be dangerous, it tends to keep assuming it might be dangerous, even when your circumstances have changed dramatically. This is why you might find yourself lying in your safe, comfortable bed, in your locked house, with no actual threats present, and still feel like something terrible is about to happen. Your nervous system is drawing on old information, old patterns, old ways of keeping you safe. There's a concept in trauma therapy called neuroception. It was coined by Dr. Stephen Porges, and it refers to your nervous system's ability to detect safety or danger without your conscious awareness. Your neuroception is constantly scanning your environment, your body, and your relationships, asking, am I safe right now? And based on that assessment, it either allows your system to relax or keeps it in a state of protective activation. Your neuroception has become skewed toward detecting danger. The quiet of nighttime, the vulnerability of sleep, the transition from day to night, these all trigger subtle danger signals in your nervous system. This isn't conscious. It's not something you're choosing to do. It's happening at a level much deeper than thought, much faster than rational analysis. Dr. Gabor Mate often talks about how trauma isn't really about what happened to you. It's about what happens inside you as a result of what happened to you. And what often happened inside you is that you developed coping strategies that were brilliant and necessary at the time, but that may no longer serve you in your current circumstances. Your bedtime hypervigilance was probably adaptive at some point in your life. Maybe it helped you anticipate your parents' moods, or stay alert to danger, or mentally rehearse how to handle difficult situations. Your brain developed this pattern because it worked. It kept you safe, or at least helped you feel more prepared. But now, years later, this same pattern might be keeping you from the rest you desperately need. This is why I never tell you to simply stop worrying or just relax. These patterns developed for reasons in your life. They deserve to be honored and understood, not dismissed or forced away. Instead, I invite you to get curious about your bedtime experience. Your hypervigilant mind is trying to protect you from something. There's some old danger it's still scanning for. Some younger part of you learned that nighttime required vigilance. Sometimes, simply acknowledging this can begin to shift things for you. When you realize that your bedtime anxiety is connected to that younger part of you who felt responsible for your family's well-being, something can soften in your system. You might think, it makes sense that part of me is still trying to figure everything out at night. That's when the problem surfaced when I was little. That's when I learned I needed to be the problem solver. This isn't about blaming your parents or your past. Most parents do the best they can with the resources and awareness they have. Most difficult situations aren't anyone's fault, but understanding the origins of your patterns can help you respond to them with compassion rather than frustration. Instead of fighting against your racing mind, you can acknowledge it. There's that part of me that learned to be extra careful at bedtime. It's trying to keep me safe. I appreciate that, and I also don't need that level of protection right now. This gentle acknowledgement often works better for you than resistance. When you fight against your bedtime anxiety, you're essentially fighting against a part of yourself that's trying to help. When you acknowledge it with understanding, you can begin to dialogue with it, to update it, to help it learn that your current circumstances are different from the ones that originally required such vigilance. Now, I want to talk about what's happening in your body during those long nights of tossing and turning. Because your bedtime anxiety isn't just a mental experience, it's a full body phenomenon. Let me paint a picture of what's happening inside you when your mind starts racing at 11 p.m. First, your heart rate increases, not dramatically. You're not having a panic attack, but enough that your cardiovascular system is now operating more like it would during light exercise than during rest preparation. Your breathing becomes more shallow and rapid, instead of the deep, slow breaths that naturally occur as we transition to sleep. You're breathing more like someone who's mildly stressed or concentrating hard on a difficult task. Your muscle tension increases, particularly in your jaw, shoulders, and stomach. You might not even notice this consciously, but your body is subtly bracing itself, as if preparing for some kind of challenge. Your core body temperature, which should naturally drop as you prepare for sleep, either stays elevated or fluctuates in ways that make deep sleep difficult. And perhaps most significantly, your stress hormone levels, particularly cortisol, remain elevated when they should be decreasing. This is your sympathetic nervous system at work. Your sympathetic nervous system isn't the enemy here. It's the part of your nervous system responsible for activation, energy, and response to challenges. Without it, you couldn't get out of bed in the morning, focus at work, or respond to genuine emergencies. The challenge is that your sympathetic nervous system is supposed to work in partnership with your parasympathetic nervous system, the part responsible for rest, digestion, and recovery. These two systems should be like dance partners, taking turns leading based on what you need in any given moment. During the day, sympathetic activation helps you focus, work, and handle stress. During the evening and night, parasympathetic activation should take over, allowing your body to rest, repair, and prepare for the next day. But in your bedtime anxiety, this dance gets disrupted. Your sympathetic nervous system doesn't fully step back, even when it's clearly time for rest. It's like having a dance partner who won't let you lead, even when it's supposed to be your turn. This creates what researchers call autonomic dysregulation in your system. Your autonomic nervous system, which controls all the automatic functions of your body, get stuck in a pattern that's not appropriate for the situation. Now, let's talk about cortisol, because this stress hormone plays a huge role in your bedtime anxiety. Cortisol follows what's called a circadian rhythm. In healthy patterns, cortisol is highest in the morning. This is what helps you wake up and feel alert. Throughout the day, it gradually decreases, reaching its lowest levels in the evening and night. This decrease in cortisol is one of the signals that tells your body it's time to sleep. But chronic stress, anxiety, and trauma have disrupted this pattern in your system. Instead of following a healthy rhythm, your cortisol might spike at inappropriate times, like when you're trying to fall asleep. When cortisol is elevated at bedtime, it sends a message to your entire system. This is not a time for rest. This is a time for alertness and problem solving, and your body responds accordingly. This is why you might feel simultaneously exhausted and wired when you're lying in bed. Your body is tired, genuinely tired, but your stress hormone levels are telling it to stay alert. There's another hormone that plays a crucial role here: melatonin. Melatonin is often called the sleep hormone, and it's responsible for making you feel drowsy as evening approaches. In healthy patterns, melatonin production increases as it gets dark, and cortisol levels decrease. But when you're experiencing bedtime anxiety, this process gets disrupted. Elevated cortisol can actually suppress melatonin production, making it even harder for you to feel naturally sleepy. It's like your body's natural sleep pharmacy is closed just when you need it most. Now, I want to talk about something that might surprise you: the role of your digestive system in bedtime anxiety. Your gut and your brain are connected by what's called the gut-brain axis. This is a complex communication network that allows your digestive system and your brain to constantly exchange information. Here's what's fascinating. About 90% of your body's serotonin, a neurotransmitter that plays a crucial role in mood regulation and sleep, is actually produced in your gut, not your brain. When you're experiencing chronic stress or anxiety, this gut-brain communication becomes disrupted. Your digestive system might not be producing optimal levels of serotonin, which can contribute to both your anxiety and sleep difficulties. This is why you might also experience digestive issues: stomach upset, bloating, changes in appetite. Your gut is responding to the same stress signals that are keeping your mind active at night. There's also something called the inflammatory response that we need to discuss. Chronic stress and poor sleep create a state of low-level inflammation in your body. This inflammation doesn't just affect your physical health. It also affects your brain function and emotional regulation. When your system is in a chronic inflammatory state, your amygdala, that smoke detector we talked about, becomes even more sensitive. It's as if inflammation turns up the volume on your threat detection system, making you more likely to perceive neutral situations as potentially dangerous. This creates another vicious cycle. Stress and poor sleep create inflammation, which increases your anxiety and makes sleep even more difficult. But here's what I want you to understand. All of these physiological changes are your body's attempt to take care of you. Your elevated cortisol, your increased heart rate, your active sympathetic nervous system, these are all responses to what your body perceives as a need for protection. Your body isn't betraying you. It's trying to keep you safe based on the information it's receiving from your nervous system. The key to healing isn't forcing these systems to change, but rather addressing the underlying signals that are keeping them activated. When your nervous system truly feels safe, when it truly believes that rest is appropriate and possible, these physiological changes will naturally follow. This is why approaches that only address the symptoms, sleeping pills, relaxation techniques, sleep hygiene rules, sometimes fall short. They're trying to override your body's protective systems without addressing why those systems are activated in the first place. True healing happens when we work with your body's wisdom, not against it. When we help your nervous system learn that it's genuinely safe to let its guard down, that bedtime can be a time of peace rather than vigilance. You've tried everything. You average about 4 hours of sleep per night. You're exhausted, anxious, and frustrated with yourself. You've thought, I've tried sleep hygiene, meditation apps, sleeping pills, exercise, cutting out caffeine. Nothing works. I must be doing something wrong. You've experienced that internal dialogue during those sleepless hours. You've gotten frustrated with yourself. You've thought, here we go again. Why can't I just go to sleep? Normal people can just go to sleep. What's wrong with me? Your external approaches to sleep, all those techniques you've tried, were actually quite good. But your internal approach has been working against you. You've been treating your sleeplessness like an enemy to be defeated, your racing mind like a problem to be fixed, your anxiety like a character flaw to be eliminated. This is where compassion becomes not just helpful, but essential. Here's what I've learned after years of working with people who struggle with sleep. The way you relate to your sleeplessness often matters more than the specific techniques you use to address it. When you approach your bedtime anxiety with frustration, self-criticism, or desperation, you're actually adding another layer of stress to an already stressed system. You're essentially telling your nervous system, not only is bedtime dangerous because of all these worries, but it's also dangerous because I'm failing at something I should be able to do. But when you approach your bedtime experience with curiosity, understanding, and genuine compassion, something different becomes possible. Let me share with you what I call the compassionate witness approach. Instead of fighting against your racing thoughts, you can observe them with the same gentle attention you might give to a friend who's going through a difficult time. Instead of criticizing yourself for being awake, you can acknowledge that part of you that's working so hard to keep you safe. This isn't about positive thinking or pretending everything is fine. It's about changing the relationship you have with your own experience. Here's what this sounds like in practice. Instead of, God, here I go again. I'm never going to fall asleep. This is terrible. You can try, I notice my mind is very active right now. There's a part of me that seems concerned about tomorrow. I wonder what it's trying to figure out. Instead of, I should be sleeping. Normal people can sleep. What's wrong with me? You can try. My system seems to be in protection mode right now. It's working hard to keep me safe. I appreciate that, even though I'd also like to rest. This shift in internal dialogue can have profound effects on your nervous system. When you approach your experience with curiosity rather than criticism, you're signaling safety to your system. You're not creating additional threat by fighting against yourself. Now, let me share some specific practices that can help support this compassionate approach. The body scan with appreciation. When you're lying in bed with a busy mind, try this. Instead of focusing on your thoughts, gently shift your attention to your body. But instead of just noticing tension or discomfort, include appreciation. Start at the top of your head and slowly move your attention down through your body. As you notice each part, offer a small acknowledgement of gratitude. Thank you, eyes, for all you've seen today. Thank you, shoulders, for carrying so much. Thank you, heart, for beating steadily all day long. This practice does several things. It gives your busy mind something specific to focus on. It activates your parasympathetic nervous system through gentle body awareness, and it creates a sense of connection and appreciation for your physical self. The worry window technique. Your mind becomes most active at bedtime because it's the first quiet moment you've had all day to process your concerns. Instead of fighting against this, you can work with it. Set aside 10 to 15 minutes earlier in the evening, perhaps after dinner, but before your bedtime routine, as your worry window. During this time, write down everything that's on your mind. Don't try to solve the problems, just acknowledge them. When these same worries arise at bedtime, you can gently remind yourself, I've already given time to these concerns today. right now is for rest, the nervous system reset. This is a simple practice that helps shift your autonomic nervous system from sympathetic to parasympathetic activation. Place one hand on your chest and one on your belly. Take a long, slow exhale, longer than your inhale. As you exhale, imagine you're releasing not just air, but also the day's tension, worries, and responsibilities. Do this for just a few breaths. You're not trying to force relaxation, but rather inviting your nervous system to remember what safety feels like. The compassionate dialogue. When your mind is racing, try having a gentle conversation with the part of you that's so active. I notice you're working very hard right now. What are you most concerned about? Listen to what comes up without trying to fix or change it. I understand why that would be concerning. You're trying to take care of us. Is there anything that would help you feel more at ease right now? Sometimes, just the act of acknowledging your worried mind with kindness can help it settle. Now, I want to address something important. These practices might not work immediately, and that's completely normal and okay. You've been struggling with bedtime anxiety for months or years, so your nervous system has learned to associate bedtime with activation. It will take time to learn new patterns, to develop new associations. Be patient with yourself during this process. Some nights might be better than others. Some techniques might resonate with you while others don't. This isn't a failure, it's information. The goal isn't to eliminate bedtime anxiety overnight. The goal is to develop a different relationship with it, one that's characterized by understanding rather than resistance, by self-compassion rather than self-criticism. After several months of practicing this compassionate approach, you might notice something important. I still have nights where my mind is busy, but I don't hate myself for it anymore. And somehow, that's made all the difference. When I'm not fighting against my own experience, sleep comes more easily. As we come toward the end of our time together tonight, I want to leave you with something practical, something you can take with you as you prepare for sleep. But first, let me remind you of something essential. Healing doesn't happen overnight. The patterns we've been discussing, your hypervigilant amygdala, your overactive default mode network, your trauma-informed responses, these developed over time, often over many years. They will also heal over time. This isn't because you're broken or because change is impossible. It's because lasting change happens gradually, gently, with patience and consistent care. So, as you begin to experiment with new approaches to your bedtime experience, please be gentle with yourself. Please remember that every small step toward self-compassion, every moment of curiosity instead of criticism, every night where you treat yourself with kindness, all of these matter, even when you don't see immediate changes in your sleep. Here's what I'd like you to try tonight, and in the nights to come. Before you get into bed, take a moment to appreciate your body for everything it's done for you today. Your heart beat approximately 100,000 times. Your lungs took about 20,000 breaths. Your brain processed millions of pieces of information, helping you navigate your day, connect with others, and take care of yourself and those you love. As you settle into bed, instead of immediately expecting sleep to come, simply rest in the fact that you're horizontal, that you're safe, that this is a time for your body to be supported and still. When your mind becomes active, remember that this doesn't mean you've failed. Your mind is trying to take care of you in the only way it knows how. You can acknowledge this. Thank you, mind, for trying to protect me. Right now, I'm safe and it's okay to rest. When sleep doesn't come right away, resist the urge to check the time, to calculate how many hours you have left, or to spiral into worry about tomorrow. Instead, remind yourself that rest, even wakeful rest, has value. Your body is still recovering, your nervous system is still having a chance to settle. And remember this, you are not the only one lying awake tonight. Millions of people around the world are having the same experience you're having. You're part of a vast, invisible community of people whose minds become busy when their heads hit the pillow, whose nervous systems are working overtime to keep them safe. You're not alone in this experience, and you're not abnormal for having it. What you're experiencing is the result of a brain and nervous system that care deeply about your well-being, that have been shaped by your unique life experiences, and that are doing their best to protect you based on the information they have. Your bedtime anxiety isn't a character flaw. It's not something you're doing wrong. It's not evidence that you're broken or beyond help. It's evidence that you're human, that you've lived through things that required resilience, that part of you is still working very hard to keep you safe. And that part of you, that vigilant, caring, protective part, deserves your compassion, not your criticism. As you practice approaching your bedtime experience with this gentleness, you might begin to notice small changes. Maybe your body relaxes a little more quickly. Maybe your self-talk becomes kinder. Maybe you feel less frustrated when sleep doesn't come immediately. These small changes matter. They're not just steps toward better sleep. They're steps toward a more compassionate relationship with yourself. And that relationship, that inner sense of safety, acceptance, and understanding, that's what creates the conditions in which healing can occur. So tonight, and in the nights to come, I invite you to be curious instead of critical, gentle instead of harsh, patient instead of demanding. Your nervous system has been working so hard for so long to keep you safe. Tonight, you can help it learn that it's okay to rest, that you're grateful for its protection, and that right now, in this moment, you're okay. Sweet dreams, and remember, you're exactly where you need to be. And now, it's time for you to sleep.